countries we have alliances with. I would say that many of our allied countries, they meet with Democrats and Republicans, and sometimes libertarians or whoever. I mean, who are political figures that travel overseas, they also have meetings with them. So part of the job of the State Department is to inform the administration about sort of the internal political dynamics of the countries that we have alliances and partnerships with. Because in the end, we don't know what the outcomes of elections are, but understanding that the internal political climate of individual countries is a key part of determining how we approach and pursue public policy in partnership with them. And that's why, we've had recent elections here in the Western Hemisphere, and we've met with multiple people that are running. Meeting with them does not mean we're endorsing them for president of Bolivia or president of Chile, but we do want to know who these people are and what they're about and what they're thinking, because it informs our work. And by the way, so, we do that from the embassy as well. I mean, we get a lot of the cables I have is a meeting they met with someone who's going to run for president in 2 years. That doesn't mean we're endorsing the person, but we should probably know a little bit about them in case they win. And even if they don't win, if their party has votes in the parliament or votes in their legislative branch, that's an important factor to consider. Yes.
Thank you. Some key European and regional allies say they're limiting intelligence sharing with the United States because they're worried that the boat strikes violate international law and they don't want to be involved. Doesn't that strain these relations with key partners that you say you need in order to do these broader security efforts in the region?
No, it doesn't. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm not going to comment on intelligence matters. Every day I read stuff that's just not true. Every day. I'm not telling you guys are being, but you guys are being lied to sometimes. Like, sources will come to you and tell you things. Just because they have a government email doesn't mean they know what they're saying. Maybe they just want to sound important. Maybe they have other incentives. I'm not opining about your question in particular. I'm just writ large, but I'm not going to talk about intelligence matters. Suffice it to say that the United States, every boat strike we've conducted, okay, this is not people seeing a boat and say, okay, let the drummer get wicked and blow him up. We're not talking about that stuff. We are presenting every single one of these is justified. We know who's on those boats. We've been tracking them from the very beginning. We know everything about them. Okay, there are boat strikes we don't take because they don't meet the criteria, the legal criteria. We have everything we need, and it's one of the reasons why you've seen this massive deployment in the region, is to be able to gather intelligence and paint a picture that we can justify to lawyers based on the law. So I'm very confident about that effort. It's been very successful.
Thank you, sir. Back to terrorist designations. Last month, the State Department designated 4 European groups aligned with Antifa as foreign terrorist organizations. Could we see more designations like that in the works for left-wing extremist groups, and what could the scope
I mean,
of
if
that
the
look
groups
like?
involved in firebombing, if there's anybody involved in activities such as that could potentially inspire or lead to violence in the United States, we're going to designate them. So sure, if you have any we want to suggest, I will look at them. Okay, here you go. I told you we'd get to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. Mr. Secretary, I wanted to drill down on the way you and the administration see America's national interests, because you said that Ukraine is not on our continent, not our war. You said something in our own hemisphere is more important. So this involves both our commitment to the negotiations in Ukraine, which the President is passionately committed to for ending the rising numbers of deaths, he says. Russian President Putin told my colleague, Keir Simmons, today at the news conference in Moscow, "We do not consider ourselves responsible for the loss of life because it was not us who started this war." Does the administration, does the President, you, the administration, believe that Putin was not the aggressor here? And if so, how can you reach an agreement between two parties when the aggressor will not acknowledge that he invaded a sovereign country? Let me, if I just may follow. So how do you reach any kind of compromise or ceasefire when Vladimir Putin repeatedly says, and you say that may not be what he really believes, but he has never said that he would make concessions publicly. And he's never said that he invaded Ukraine. He's always said that that is Russian territory. So why is that not in our national interest? When also in our hemisphere, if it's impossible to eliminate the threat of narco-terrorism as you describe it, with Maduro in charge, you've described the extent beyond narco-terrorism and drug trafficking of his threat. You've described it today as a threat to the region. doesn't that mean there will have to be regime change? And is it in America's national interest to get involved in regime change in our hemisphere, given what's happened before? And why is Maduro this overriding, I mean, he is an overriding threat by all acknowledgement, but why is the former president of Honduras not a regional threat, who was personally involved in, hundreds of
All right.
tons?
So let me take the second one for the first one. On the president of Honduras, I'm not involved in the pardon process, which is what that was. He's no longer in office. So that might be
He was in a U.S. prison.
No, I understand,
He was-
but I can't comment on our pardons process because that's not an area that I have many jobs, but that ain't one of them. So I'm not hiding from it. I'm just telling you I don't know. I can't give you an informed answer on that because I was just involved in that process. As far as the question of Maduro and his impediment, look, I've just made the observation that it's hard to make a deal with someone. Everybody says, everybody says we should go to negotiation. All I'm observing, maybe, I'm just saying all I'm observing is he's never kept any of the deals he's made in the past, which makes it difficult to consider making one in the future. Beyond that, I'm not going to speculate about what might or may not happen. Ultimately, I can tell you what our goals are and what our interests are, and that's how we've defined them.
Well, in
Now-
2019, didn't he get bailed out by Cuban military, Cuban intelligence, outside forces? And so ultimately, with this blockade, is this partly, yes, Maduro, but
No, this-
partly
this-
to get at
no.
Cuba and Iran and the
No, this-
recipients of this,
No,
of
this
sanctioned oil?
this action on the boats, these are sanctioned, but these are enforcement actions. That's what they are. They are existing sanctions, and therefore 80% of their oil is shipped through ghost fleets. Okay, so we understand what we're talking about here. We are talking about boats that are basically privateers, okay, that are flying under false flags, that turn off the transponders, that spoof their true location. They are hired to evade sanctions. We are simply enforcing sanctions. Every one of these has a court order attached to it. We go to a judge, the judge issues the warrant, we're executing. These are enforcement actions. That the fact that they happen to impact a terrorist regime, is a good thing, but they are enforcement actions, and we are conducting enforcement actions. On the case of Ukraine, no one has said that Ukraine is a zero in terms of our national interests. We have sold them billions of dollars worth of weaponry. We've provided them in previous billions of dollars worth of weaponry. We continue to provide them intelligence support. And we have sanctioned. The president has sanctioned the Russian Federation. He issued oil sanctions. All the oil sanctions everybody wanted him to do, he did them. He did them a month and a half ago. All I'm saying, now you point to all the stuff about, does Putin say this? Does Putin? That's why this issue set is difficult. I'm not claiming anything other than the fact that we understand it's difficult. We understand that you're not going to have a deal unless both sides have to give and both sides have to get. Both sides will have to make concessions if you're going to have a deal. You may not have a deal. We may not have a deal. It's unfortunate.
The U.S. should walk away from that if it
Well,
is
that's
not a prime region interest, because it's not in our continent.
That's
as
not
you
my
said
decision
today.
to make. Ultimately, the president will make a determination if and when he feels like further U.S. engagement is no longer productive or serves the national interest. That's a decision the president have to make. I can't speculate about that. All right, yes.
Mr. Secretary, a question for you on Venezuela and then quickly on Ukraine. You mentioned Maduro was not the only one indicted by the United States in the Southern District. Does that mean it is U.S. policy that not just Maduro, but his top regime lieutenants, cabinet members, that they all must exit?
Yeah, no, I point to the indictment simply as when people say, well, how do we are alleging that he is, and I guess, you can describe it any way you want. I just want to make clear, this is not something we came up with.
Right.
We're basing it on a federal indictment and a superseding indictment.
Cabello's in there.
Yeah, a bunch of people are. And so, but what it proves is, and the reason why I raise the indictments is because the indictments are the point of the $50 million reward. And I believe the $25 or $10 million reward for Cabello and for others. My point is that this allegation, this claim that the Maduro regime is a narco-terrorist organization is not on the basis of political talk or speculation. It is on the basis of evidence provided to a grand jury in the Southern District of New York that returned an indictment. And that's why I point to those indictments.
Can I ask you on Ukraine quickly, because Russia has deployed its latest nuclear-capable missile system to Belarus, according to that country's leadership. We've heard from a number of European leaders, the Chancellor of Germany himself, that they think this era of Pax Americana is gone, that they are needing to prepare to be on a war footing because of the threat from Putin. Do you believe, does this administration believe today, that Vladimir Putin will end his march on the eastern flank of Ukraine? And do you stand by our European allies against any kind of attack?
Look, we have heard the same concerns from our allies in NATO. It's why we are in NATO. It's why we meet with them. It's why we talk to them all the time. I've spoken to Mark Rutte this year probably 40 times, and he's spoken to multiple people in our administration as well, multiple times. He's been here multiple times. He speaks to the president directly. It's why the United States basically is over 50% of NATO, both in troop commitments and in financial commitments as well. It's why we remain in NATO. It's why the president had a very positive visit in NATO. In the end, that's why we're in this alliance. And that's why Article 5 in the NATO alliance is important, and the president has reiterated that. We think it's a very strong deterrent against any of these fears or concerns that any of our allies in the region may have. And the president's been clear that we are committed to NATO, we're committed to the alliance, and our commitment isn't just rhetorical. Our commitment is in action, in the troops that have been deployed, in the monies that have been spent, in the capabilities that are located, in the cooperation and that work that we do every single day with our NATO allies. The only thing we're asking for, which is not unfair, is for our partners in the alliance to improve their own capabilities. Because the more capable our allies in NATO are, the more capable NATO is.
But are
We're
you
going to
saying
keep
these
doing our
allies
part.
are-
We just want them to do more. And they've committed to do more.
But these allies are saying that they are concerned now.
Sure. And that's why we have NATO.
So nothing has changed? Pax Americana, what the Chancellor
Oh, I don't
Germany
know.
said
I don't know
would
why he's saying that. You'll have to ask him why he's saying that. The truth of the matter is that NATO is the key defense alliance and agreement that has provided stability on the European continent. We believe it is stronger today than it's ever been because our allies have committed to increase their own defense spending. The more capable our allies are, we've already made our commitment. We've been spending billions and billions and billions. It's the single biggest part of the largest government budget in the world is defense spending in the United States. So we've already done our part, and our part isn't just rhetorical, it's real. We have troops stationed there, we have capabilities there, we have weapons we've provided our partners in the region as well. We believe that if you want a strong NATO, you want your allies in NATO to be stronger. The more capable our allies in NATO are, the stronger NATO is collectively. And that's why we're very pleased to see them make that commitment of 5%, with the exception of Spain. And that's why the president left our NATO gathering earlier this year so enthusiastic about the future of NATO and about our role in it. And in fact, that's why the president's been working with NATO countries on the Pearl program, which is what's providing weaponry to the Ukrainians today. Go ahead.
Secretario, gracias por su tiempo y por atendernos. Sé que esta es como la 10ª pregunta de Venezuela, pero quiero quedar claro con varias cosas. Primero, usted puede hacer una referencia al comentario que hizo el presidente Trump apolítico cuando dijo los días de Maduro están contados. ¿Eso se refiere a días, semanas, meses? Esperamos un 2026 sin Nicolás Maduro. Y me gustaría también que se refiriera a la orden de escoltar esos buques petroleros que acaba de dar Maduro a su armada, esos buques sancionados que ustedes están incautando. Algunos de ellos ya fueron escoltados, no estaban en la lista de sancionados, pero ¿qué pasaría si eso fuera con un buque sancionado? Y por último, Maduro le ha pedido al ejército colombiano que se una como un solo ejército en medio de su desespero por responder a este cerco.
Son 3 preguntas. En el tercero, nosotros no vemos eso como algo serio en términos de involucrar las Fuerzas Armadas de Colombia. En términos de los buques, como bien han dicho, creo que salieron 4 buques ayer, que ninguno de los 4 eran sancionados. Y no existe nada que vaya a impedir nuestra habilidad de poder enforzar las leyes de Estados Unidos en términos de los buques que son sancionados. Y en la primera pregunta yo no voy a especular sobre, tendrá que preguntarle a la Casa Blanca, el comentario del presidente simplemente para decirle que sin duda pensamos que el régimen de Maduro es ilegítimo y que su cooperación con estos grupos terroristas en nuestra región, incluso sus propias actividades terroristas, son una amenaza a la seguridad nacional de Estados Unidos. The 3 points that he asked about, one had to do with the Maduro calling on the Colombian armed forces to join ranks with him, and we're not really focused on that rhetoric. We're also not concerned about, there were 4 boats yesterday that were escorted by so-called naval vessels. Those were not sanctioned boats to begin with, but there's nothing that's going to impede our ability to enforce U.S. law when it comes to sanctions. We're not concerned about that. Sanctioned boats, we have the capabilities necessary to enforce our laws. We'll have a judicial order, we'll execute on those orders, and there's nothing that will impede us from being able to do that. And on the first point, the question was something about President Trump had said that Maduro's days are numbered. I didn't hear that quote. Was that a recent quote? ¿Esto fue reciente?
El 9 de diciembre.
Yeah, so ultimately, look, our observation is the same I've made here repeatedly, which is that the fundamental challenge we have here is that the Maduro regime isn't just illegitimate, they openly cooperate in terrorism against the United States. And that's a problem, and it remains a problem, and it's at the core of this.
Habló con María Corina Machado, ¿tiene pensado recibirla en Washington?
No está nada programado, yo creo que ella todavía está en Oslo. Pero obviamente yo he hablado con ella mucho en el pasado. Go ahead.
Are you going to tell us in English?
He asked about Maria Corina Machado. I believe she's still in Norway. I'm sure there'll be a meet. She'll come to the U.S. at some point, and I've obviously spoken to her many, many times over the years.
Thank you, sir, for taking so much time with us today. How many visas has the State Department revoked under your leadership so far in the last year, and how many of those are student visas?
I forgot the exact number or the breakdown of them. It's over 60 or 70,000 for different variety of reasons. Some are students, some are people that were not in the country, but we denied them re-entry. I can get you the exact numbers. I don't want to be misquoted because that's a rolling number, an average number. But look, this is not a punitive thing. We're going out to try to make examples of it. Our visa system, okay, who you allow to visit your country should reflect the national interest. We said that from the very beginning. It was one of the directives that we got from the president. It's one of the things he ran on. And so our visa process basically is, and there are some times we'll deny people visas because of activities they've undertaken overseas. Other times it's people that have visas but are in the United States doing things that run counter to our national interest. And the law gives us the right, and in fact, I would argue the obligation to remove people like that from our country. And we're going to continue to do it. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, sometimes somebody comes in and says, oh, I want to come in as a student. They're here as a student, and then once they're here, they're involved in nefarious activity. We're going to remove them from the country. But maybe they're here as a researcher. Maybe they're here as, I don't want to say journalists because you guys will get upset, but, it could be anything. These are visitors to the country. A visa is a visitor. It's not a right. By the way, we deny visas every day all over the world. People will go to an embassy, they'll sit for an interview, and the consular officer will deny them a visa because of something that came up in their record, because of something that came up in their interview, whatever it may be. So if you have the power to deny someone a visa before they get one, you most certainly have the power to revoke it once they get one and then do something they shouldn't be doing. So there's a variety of reasons why visas are denied, but all of them are because it implicates our national interest or national security in some way.
You began the briefing by talking about your confirmation hearing, and one of the core commitments or goals you set for yourself in that hearing was to rid the State Department of anti-Semitism and what the president calls DEI ideology. When you look back at the last year, have you done that, sir?
Have we done what? I'm sorry.
Rid the State Department of anti-Semitism and DEI ideology.
Well, look, I think there were actions that were being taken that we're very concerned about in terms of statements that were made from some missions around the world or actions that were taken. Ultimately, what the president asked for is a government based on merit, where people were being promoted up because of merit, irrespective of their background, their ethnicity, the color of their skin, the first language they spoke, where they were born. We want to promote people on the basis of merit. We have redone the whole process by which we do promotions in the career foreign service. We've redone it in a way that prioritizes the right things. There were people not being promoted in the State Department because even though they were exemplar foreign officers, their DEI score under the previous administration was too low. There were people that were because they weren't committed enough to the DEI cause. So we have very talented people that did not get promoted in the State Department because they did a great job, but they had a low DEI score. We got rid of that. That's not going to exist anymore. We are going to judge people on how good they are at the job that they do. And by the way, we're also opening to promoting people, not just based on seniority. We have some very talented, and I say junior officers, like 10 years, 15 years is considered junior around here. They're very talented. If we don't promote some of these people, we're going to lose them because there's a lot of money to be made in the private sector, and the people want to pursue in life. If people don't see upward mobility where they work, if they don't see the opportunity that by working hard and being successful, I'm going to be able to get ahead, they think they're meeting roadblocks, they may leave and go work for another agency or outside of government. So we want to promote good people on the basis of merit. And I do think we have made changes. In fact, I just today approved a list of foreign service promotions for the president to submit to Congress, and it's on that new basis. So I'm really happy with that program. And look, we'll tinker with it, we'll improve it as time goes on, but we thought it was critically important that people be promoted on the basis of merit and skill, and not on all these other things, and certainly not on a DEI score. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Given that the Brown University and MIT shooter entered the U.S. with a diversity visa and Secretary Noem has since paused the program, is the State Department looking into considering pursuing permanent changes to the green card system, like changes to eligibility rules?
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to her. I know they suspended that program because they want this. And the reason why you suspend this program is not because you argue everybody who came in under that visa is a bad person and is going to shoot a place up. It's because you want to determine whether there's something in the vetting of that program that's insufficient. Is there a systemic problem in how those decisions are made that needs to be addressed? So I think it's wise to suspend a program until you understand whether there's a deficiency in the program. So you just had a guy that came in through a certain route. You suspend the program to figure out whether something that came up in the interview process should have been a red flag but wasn't identified, so you can fix that before you restart the program. So I would imagine that's the process we're going to go through as well. Okay, yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Secretary. Thanks for all your time here today. An issue I believe is close to your heart, Cuba. Is it the policy of the United States to seek regime change in Havana? And should we see the developments that are going on right now with Venezuela, the U.S. policies, as part of an effort to bring down the communist government?
Yeah,
and if I may briefly,
yeah.
do you stand by your statement earlier this year that nobody has died from U.S. aid cuts?
On your first point, I think it's not just the policy of this administration. I think every administration would love to see a different type of situation in Cuba. Cuba's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's not just because they're Marxists and because they're terrorists. They're incompetent. These are incompetent people, and they've destroyed that country. On the second point, I'm very proud of the changes we've made in foreign aid. Just yesterday, the day before, we are, I think before the end of this year, going to enter into over 50 compacts, health compacts with different countries around the world. Understand the way this used to work. We used to go to a country and say, we're going to give you a bunch of money for your healthcare programs. And then we would go out and hire some NGO in Northern Virginia or whatever. They would take their 60% cut off the top for administrative aid. They would take another 20%. Before you knew it, just a portion of that money was even reaching these countries. In many cases, many of those countries, it is true. I heard somebody whisper that's not true. It is true. In many of these countries, the governments didn't even know how much money was being spent. We are now entering into government-to-government compacts with these governments. And the compacts are the following. Not only are they provided assistance, but they are being provided a plan to build up their own self-sustainment and their own abilities internally. So that in the long term, these countries need less aid because they can now do it for themselves. Some countries may take 5 years, some countries may take longer, but we're very proud of that, and the countries are very excited about that. I'm also very excited about humanitarian aid. It's interesting, nobody, you guys didn't pay a lot of attention to this, but this happened. In Jamaica, got hit by this hurricane. And everybody, I saw some articles, oh, this is going to be a disaster, the U.S. humanitarian response is not going to be good. It was excellent. Perhaps one of the best humanitarian responses in recent memory in terms of what we were able to bring very quickly to bear in assistance to them, led by our embassy, but also led by the region. And by the way, it was also very helpful that we had a lot of military assets in the region that were able to assist in that as well. We recently had an event in Sri Lanka. Again, we were able to very quickly provide assistance, the assistance they needed. So we're very, it's still a work in progress. We're still building this out. But I think in the big picture and in the long term, when people look back at this, they're going to say that we redid foreign aid in a way that actually delivered aid more effectively and in a way that furthered our national interests, both. And a lot of it driven from the embassy level. The amount of control and power and influence that our ambassadors and our embassies will now have to help shape how foreign aid looks like in those individual countries is much greater today than it was when you had USAID sitting alongside them almost as an independent branch that oftentimes took actions completely divorced, completely separated from our broader foreign policy. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. First, I want to ask a clarifying question regarding Venezuela. You mentioned you've spoken with the opposition leader repeatedly over the years. When was the last time you spoke with her?
I don't recall. I mean, she was not in a place where talking was very easy.
And
she was in hiding in Venezuela.
Do you think there's a possibility we could be seeing a White House summit with her in any sort of future?
I don't know. I mean, that maybe. I don't know. I mean, nothing's been planned.
And then shifting gears a little bit, the State Department mentioned earlier this year some free speech concerns, particularly in Europe. What are some goals you have in regards to that in 2026? Any countries or certain efforts that you have?
Well, I mean, broadly, we're concerned about any place, first and foremost, where American free speech could be implicated, right? Are we going to live in a world where some American puts up a social media post and then gets to some airport somewhere and is arrested? We're also concerned about the impact that some of their policies are having on our social media platforms. As you recently saw, X is facing this massive multi-million-dollar fine that they're going to have to pay, I guess, if they want to continue to operate. But I think more importantly, I think it touches on the broader question that was asked a little bit earlier. We all talk about how these alliances, in many cases our alliances with our European partners, are built on our common principles, our common values, as much as anything else. These aren't just a geopolitical arrangement. It is an alliance with like-minded countries with whom we share values and principles. And one of those values and principles, we hope, is freedom and the freedom of expression. And we're concerned that that is eroding. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.